The room was uncomfortably quiet as the delegates waited anxiously. The Urban Combine-human conflict had been raging for nearly a full year, with the Combine taking the bulk of the losses as they continued to invade human-occupied territory to assert their claim of annexation. The humans, curiously, had stayed in their designated area, their ships only appearing to intercept the Combine fleets, then quietly slipping back into the void. The one time Combine troops managed to land on a human-occupied world, there were no Combine survivors. Now the Combine was suing for peace after a single human warship was spotted near the heart of their territory. It hadn't fired, or made any aggressive movement, only hung there in space until it was noticed, then faded back into the shadows. "What in Volan's name is taking them so long?" the Combine ambassador grumbled. "Even with their primitive drive systems, they should have arrived by now." The negotiator, a spindly Teshara, looked at the pacing four-armed Yoruban and sighed. "Patience, Ambassador. It was your lack of it that put you in this situation." The Yoruban was about to snap back when a voice came over the station's comms. "Human vessels detected." The pair went to the viewing window and watched as a single human warship faded into existence, then 5, then 50. Carriers, battleships, cruisers, and then one of the single most massive ships either diplomat had ever seen, a flagship. It dwarfed their already massive carrier ships, vessels the Yorubans had since learned had completely automated manufacturing facilities that allowed each one to build a seemingly unending stream of their defensive drones. Several heavy railguns stood like spikes on the Titan's hull, and a massive port at the front could only be one thing: a mass driver. "That thing could hurl a small moon," the Yoruban whispered. "And yet they've never deployed it," the negotiator said. "Clearly they've been holding back." The carrier's docks opened, and drones began to stream out in slow, steady, regimented lines. The Yoruban's eyes went wide in panic as he began to lurch towards the comm, trying to warn the control tower to tell them to open fire. A 7-fingered hand rested on the ambassador's shoulder, holding him in place with unexpected strength. "Wait. Look." The drones continued their slow flight, forming a protective corridor towards the station's docking bay. A single shuttle launched from the flagship and guided into the tunnel's shield drones. "They don't trust you," the Teshara said. "They're expecting you to attack." "Can you blame us? Look at that! That thing out there! Its very existence is a war crime!" The negotiator shook his head. "The humans are not a coalition species. They're not bound by our laws. They brought it here as a show of strength, a demonstration that they've been merciful." Both looked up as the comms chimed again. "The human representative has landed. They are being escorted to the chamber." Both admirals took the remaining moments to do last-moment preening as adjustment of uniforms before the door slid open. 6 armored and helmeted figures entered, taking positions on either side of the door, followed by a smaller human in formal military dress, who approached the negotiation table. "I am Admiral Amanda Ramirez Cole, Commander of the United Sol Navy's First Fleet. I speak with the authority of my people's government." The mechanical voice of the Translate AI translating her words into Galactic Standard. Neither diplomat had actually ever seen a human before, and the Yoruban was dumbstruck at this small figure that was nearly a metre shorter than most of his people. Even the soldiers at the doorway were small. These were the scourge that had been driving the Combine back. They were the indomitable force that came from the shadows, like vengeful spectres. "I am Valek Azogoth, your intermediary for these peace talks. Patryk P is representing the Yoruban Combine," the Teshara said, spindly arms bending at both elbow joints and crossing his chest in greeting. Patryk and Amanda stared at each other from across the table, the tension thicker than a rocky moon between the two. "Let's get this over with," Patryk said, taking a seat. "Indeed," Amanda said, taking her own. Volker stood at the head of the table between the two, their serpentine body keeping them from sitting. "The Yoruban Combine wishes to see an end to the conflict with your people," Volker opened. "Good. We told you how that idiot commandant of yours how to prevent it a year ago," Amanda said. She took off her officer's cap and set it at the edge of the table beside her. "Go away, leave us alone." Patryk rubbed at the spot above his olfactory organ in frustration. "The annexation of your space was a completely legal and—" "Go away." Volker's hand raised to calm the two. "Ambassador, the Annexation Act does not permit for areas of currently occupied space. The Combine is aware of that, yet you've pressed your claim." "The Annexation Act applies to known inhabited space," Patryk said, voice raising in frustration. These people have no recognized borders, no territorial claims lodged with the Central Authority. We didn't even know they were there until our claim was verified and accepted by the Central Authority. No one did. Amanda cleared her throat. Are you done? She asked coldly, raising a hand as one of the armored figures approached and handed her a datapad. The pad activated and she slid it to the middle of the table. Our borders were formally recognized 2 centuries ago, she said. All 77 systems. We exist inside what your Central Authority considers a dark sector, a place you're not supposed to go. Talca snatched up the datapad, scrolling through it. This is nonsense. A dark sector isn't a territorial claim. Your entire species are citizens of the Combine now, and you will... Volker rose a bit. Ambassador, you will be silent. The Admiral has produced evidence that appears to countermand your claim, Volker said, speaking in a commanding tone that made the Yoruban sink into his chair. The Tashara reached across with one long arm and plucked the datapad from Talca's hand and holding it up to read. The Thetians. Interesting. The ambassador raised an eyebrow. Thetians? What do those ashen-skinned eggheads have to do with anything? Amanda's lips curled into a small smirk. 2.5 centuries ago, the Thetians made official first contact with us while we were still building our first colonies in our home-star system. They acted as friends at first, offering us knowledge and technology centuries ahead of our own. Then, they tried to enslave us. Both the negotiator and the ambassador looked to the Admiral, then back to the datapad, as they began to start to piece things together. Needless to say, they didn't really expect us to act. She paused and shrugged. Like us, they thought we'd just roll over and submit to their superior technology. You see, we've been killing each other for tens of thousands of years over really dumb stuff, so when something not human tried to steamroll us, we put that aside. They destroyed cities, we detonated fusion weapons on them in our own atmosphere. They landed armies, we waged guerrilla warfare and stole their technology. They sent fleets, we sent suicide drones. They killed billions of us, but we killed tens of billions of them. Volker looked back to the Admiral with a shadow of horror in their eyes. Your species is the walking death? Amanda broke into a full grin now. What can I say? She said. Then turning to stare directly at the Yoruban ambassador. We like to make an impression. Talca's skin went pale as Amanda's eyes locked on his. The walking death was a plague, he croaked. To quote the Theatans directly, Amanda said, holding her gaze on Talca, a species hereunto unknown with a capacity for unparalleled destruction. It is endlessly adaptable, intelligent, and ruthless. A plague. Should it ever be allowed to escape the suggested quarantine zone? Volker scrolled, finding the exact quote verbatim and showing it to Talca. So, Amanda said, holding her arms wide, you've been given cause for what, even by your own Central Authority, is one of the single most deadly forms of life to leave this little quiet slice of the galaxy. We have a word for that in my world, she said, leaning over the table. A plague rat. Vermin that spread disease, death, and destruction. Amanda picked up her hat, turning it in her hands and brushing it off idly, and nodding to the viewing window and the massive ship hanging outside in the void. My ship is called the Leviathan. Her sisters are the Baal, the Shaitan, Shiva's Wrath, the Morning Star, the Kraken, and Yormanga. They're all named for our species' mythical entities of destruction. The Leviathan is here, but her sisters and all their children are waiting at our border. You're at a crossroad, Ambassador. Do you continue to press and risk bringing a plague of ruin and destruction into your Combine, or leave and keep it isolated and contained? Volker turned to the Admiral, taking a deep breath through the atmosphere unit over their gills. Admiral, surely there's no need for such escalation. I'm certain we can come to an accord of some kind. Amanda shrugged. My government's stance is the same as it was a year ago, and is non-negotiable. Go away. Leave us alone. We haven't left our space yet, but if a single Yoruban ship crosses our borders after I leave here, our fleets will invade Yoruban Combine space. We've already proven we can do so undetected. We've been patient until now, but that is at an end. With that, Amanda stood and tucked her hat under her arm. Her head bobbed in a quick nod, then turned and walked towards the door. We'll assume you've agreed to our terms when your ships withdraw from our border. If not, well... She shrugged slightly, then paused before turning. Ambassador, she said, do you know the Theatan word for what they call us? The Yoruban nodded. Tehran. Amanda grinned. Good. They learned their lesson. I hope you do, too. Within minutes, the shuttle could be seen moving back through the corridors of drones, which then withdrew back to their carriers before the fleet simply faded away. Talca sat back in his chair, rubbing at the stress points under his clavicle to avoid the oncoming headache. Volker, having retired, has sent his report to the Central Authority. The comms chimed again. Ambassador? What is it? There was an eerie pause. We noticed something odd in the transcription of the meeting. Talca sighed, looking up at the ceiling, out of reflex as he spoke. Don't tell me the following damn software glitched again. A panel lit up as text began to scroll. Talca looked over, barely even giving the translated Yoruban text scrolling over the wall screen a glance. No, sir, I recorded everything. It's just that, well, the human. Spit it out for Volan's sake. The human wasn't speaking human. She was speaking Yoruban. Talca's eyebrows rose. What? The human, she wasn't speaking their language. The translator was converting into Galactic Standard, but she was speaking Yoruban. Talca leapt up from his seat, scrambling to the screen with panic in his eyes. He fumbled at the sense glass, bringing up the recording of the negotiation. Two of his free hearts seizing up. We have a word for that in my world, a plague rat. Vermin that spread disease, death, and destruction, the matter said in Galactic Standard. Filter out the translator. Show me the original. Ne vaka ases varada kivash neven, epa kri. Krite sholhaka, nezen, na kotun. Get me Combine Central Command, now!